Before we can perform any operation on an object, we must select it. So far, we know that objects in our scene can be selected either by clicking on the object's name in the outliner editor or by clicking directly on the object itself in the 3D viewport. Deselecting can be done by clicking in an empty space in either of these two areas. But other selection options are available to us. In fact, there are an almost overwhelming number of ways to select objects in a scene, so for the moment we'll just cover the most common ones used when we are working in object mode. The following options can be used within the outliner editor. By holding down the Control key after selecting the first object, and then clicking on subsequent object names, we can select more than one item. If we look carefully in the 3D viewport, we can see that the last item to be selected has a yellow outline while previously selected objects have an orange outline. Also, in the outliner editor that object's name appears in a brighter orange. The object with the yellow outline is known as the active object. As we will see in later videos, for some operations it is important to know which, of all the selected items, is the active object. If we hold down the Shift key while clicking on a second item, all the items in the block between the first and second selection are also selected. Notice from its yellow outline, that it is the first item to be selected that remains the active object. Another way of selecting a block of names, is to drag a box around it. Any name even partially included in the box will be selected. However, using this method, there is usually no active object. To select every object in a collection, we need to right-click on the collection name and choose Select Objects from the pop-up menu. Again, this is a method where, normally, there is no active object. Selecting using the box or collection approach will only produce an active object if the items selected contain the previous active object, as we can see in this example where Loose Cushion 1 was the last active object before the sofa collection was selected. When working in the 3D viewport, we can add to the current selection by holding down the Shift key while clicking on the additional objects. If we have more than one object selected, we can make any of those items the active object by clicking on it while holding down the Shift key. Holding down Shift and clicking on the active object will deselect that object. Pressing A will select everything and Alt-A deselect everything. This works in both the outliner editor and the 3D viewport. If we move over to the toolbar, the first icon is the selection tool. If we click on the small triangle in the bottom right corner, we'll see there are 4 selection methods. Select Box, which is the default option, allows us to select using any of the methods already described, but it also allows us to click and drag a box around the objects we want to select. If any part of an object is within this area, it will be selected. Any previously selected objects outside this area will be deselected. To add the new selection to the existing selection, hold down Shift while creating the box area. To remove the objects within the box area from a group of previously selected objects, hold down the Control key when creating the box. Tweak allows us to select an object and immediately moves it along with the mouse pointer as long as we continue to hold down the left mouse button. Select Circle changes the mouse pointer to a circle, and when this passes over the origin of an object, that object is selected. If the mouse button is released and we start again, all previous selections will be deselected. If we hold down Shift while making a second selection, the new objects will be added to the current selection. Holding down Control for the second selection will retain the previous selection but deselect any object that the circle now moves over. Near the top left of the 3D viewport is a field labeled Radius. We can drag on the value shown here to resize the circle displayed when using the Select Circle option. Select Lasso allows us to drag out an irregular shape. If an object's origin falls within that area, then that object is selected. Like the other select tools, we can use Shift to add to the current selection. And Control will deselect objects. The lasso has one more control. If we hold down the spacebar before releasing the mouse button, we can move the lasso area to a new part of the screen. Rather than using the toolbar, we can initiate the Select Box option simply by pressing the B key. This approach gives us a different look to the box operation. A set of crosshairs appears and these move with the mouse. Holding down the left mouse button and dragging defines the box area. Pressing C initiates Select Circle. Again, this is a little different from the toolbar option. This time, changing the circle size is achieved using the mouse wheel. Pressing the Escape key returns us to the selection tool currently highlighted in the toolbar. To use Select Lasso without having to select it in the toolbar, press Ctrl and drag using the right mouse button. This will add to any previous selection. To deselect using the lasso, hold down Shift Ctrl while dragging using the right mouse button. By pressing Ctrl I, we deselect those items that are currently selected and select all the other objects instead. The selected objects can be hidden from view by pressing the H key. Notice that the eye icon in the outliner changes to a closed eye. Hidden items cannot be selected. Pressing Shift H hides all the unselected objects. Pressing Alt H unhides all hidden objects and add them to the currently selected items. In the 3D Viewports menu, the Select Options gives another way of using some of the selection tools we've used so far, but it also lists many more options, most of which we can ignore at this point. For the moment, we'll mention only two that are listed here. Select All by Type. Mesh selects all the visible meshes in the scene. Random selects a random group of visible objects.